All right, so you ready for your part two task?
I think so. Hit me with it.
All right, so for part two, you will have 1 minute to prepare, and then you can speak for up to 2 minutes. The topic is, describe a time when you answered a phone call from someone you didn't know in a public place.
Okay, interesting.
All right, take a minute, gather your thoughts.
All right. Um, I'm going to try and come up with a response that would get me maybe around a band 8.
All right, let's hear it.
Okay, so this happened about 6 months ago. I was at a coffee shop near my university, just kind of sitting there studying for an exam when my phone rang. And I didn't recognize the number, so I wasn't sure who it was, but I answered it anyway. It turned out to be someone from a delivery company. They had a package for me, but they couldn't find my address. So I had to explain the directions to them, which was a little bit tricky because the coffee shop was quite noisy. I definitely felt a little awkward. You know, people were looking at me while I was on the phone trying to give these directions, so I tried to keep my voice down as much as possible. After the call ended, I was relieved that I had, sorted out the delivery, but I also felt a bit embarrassed because I don't really like being the center of attention in public.
Okay, so a classic kind of everyday situation.
Yeah, something that could happen to anyone.
Now, can you give me a Band 9 version of this?
Ooh. Okay, challenge accepted. Let me see. So I clearly remember this incident happened last year. I was waiting for my train at a really busy station. It was rush hour, so you can imagine the crowds and the noise, and my phone started ringing. It was an unknown number, so I hesitated for a second. You never know who it could be. But then I decided to answer. And the person on the other end introduced himself as a representative from my bank. He said there'd been some suspicious activity on my account and he needed to ask me some security questions. Well, naturally, I was caught off guard. Financial matters always make me a little anxious, but being surrounded by strangers and having to discuss these personal details out in the open just felt so wrong. I politely explained that I wasn't comfortable talking about this in such a public setting and that I'd call him back later from home. The whole experience left me feeling uneasy, not only because of the potential issue with my bank account, but also because it made me realize how vulnerable we can be when our privacy is compromised in such busy and chaotic environments.
Wow, that's much more.
Intense, right?
Yes, much more sophisticated, much
Right.
more nuanced.
Yeah, I tried to kind of bring in some bigger themes like you were saying before.
Absolutely, and you did a great job.
But they both kind of tell the same story, right? They're both about answering a call from a stranger.
Right, the basic situation is the same, but the way you've described it in the Band 9 version is so much more engaging and thought-provoking.
It's interesting how just changing a few words or phrases can make such a big difference.
Exactly. It's all about the impact you create with your language.
Yeah, I'm starting to see that. So what are some of the things that really make that Band 9 answer stand out? Would you say it's the vocabulary?
Vocabulary definitely plays a role, like using phrases like caught off guard or compromised privacy. These are much more sophisticated than simply saying surprised or unsafe.
Right, and they paint a much more vivid picture in the listener's mind.
Exactly, but it's not just about using big words for the sake of it. You've woven them naturally into your story so they flow smoothly and enhance the meaning.
Yeah, I was trying to be mindful of that, not
Yeah.
just, throwing in random fancy words.
And you did a great job. The other thing that really impressed me was how you connected your personal experience to a wider issue, the importance of privacy in today's world.
Right. I thought that would add a bit more depth to the response.
Absolutely. That's exactly what the examiners are looking for, that ability to think critically and connect your ideas to broader themes.
So it's like you're not just telling a story, you're showing that you can analyze and reflect on the situation.
Exactly. And that's what elevates your answer to that Band 9 level.
Wow. Okay. I'm starting to get a feel for this.
It's like you're not just answering a question, you're sparking a conversation.
I like that. I like that a lot.
And that's what good communication is all about, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So now that we've kind of seen the difference between a Band 8 and a Band 9 answer in part 2, let's move on to part 3.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah.
I'm ready for the challenge.
All right, let's see what you can do with some follow-up questions.
Bring it on.
Okay, so now let's delve a little deeper into this idea of answering a phone call in public with some part 3 follow-up questions.
All right. Yeah. Because in part 3, you really have to, kind of showcase those critical thinking skills and give more well-developed answers, right?
Exactly. It's not just about describing a situation anymore. It's about expressing opinions, analyzing issues, and supporting your views with solid arguments.
Okay. So the stakes are higher.
The stakes are definitely higher.
All right. Hit me with the first question.
All right, so let's say I ask you, should people be banned from talking loudly on the phone in public places? How would you respond?
Okay. I think for a Band 8 answer, I would say something like yes. I think people should be more considerate of others when they're talking on the phone in public places. It can be very distracting and annoying for those around them if someone is shouting or having a very loud conversation.
Okay, a solid point. What about a Band 9 response?
To make it a band 9, I would say something like, while I understand the frustration that loud phone conversations can cause, I don't think an outright ban is the most practical solution. It's more about promoting a culture of respect and consideration for others in shared spaces. Perhaps encouraging people to use headphones or move to a less crowded area if they need to make a call.
Very good. You're acknowledging the complexity of the issue and suggesting alternative solutions.
Right, because a ban might be difficult to enforce, and it doesn't really address the root of the problem, which is a lack of awareness and consideration.
Exactly. You're showing that you can think beyond simple yes or no answers and consider different perspectives.
Okay, I'm starting to see the pattern here.
All right, let's try another one. Is it ever acceptable to talk on the phone in public?
Oh, that's a tricky one. So a band 8 answer might be something like, I think it depends on the situation. If it's an emergency or if you need to make a quick call, it's probably okay. But if you're having a long and personal conversation, it's better to do that in private.
Good basic distinction. What would you say for a Band 9?
For a band 9, I'd probably say something like, I believe it's all about being mindful of your surroundings and respecting the people around you. If you need to take a call in public, keep it brief, keep your voice low, and avoid discussing sensitive topics that others might not want to overhear.
Excellent. Again, you're emphasizing respect and consideration, which are key themes in these types of questions.
Right. It's not just about what's acceptable or not. It's about understanding the social dynamics of public spaces.
Precisely. Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about children. Should parents teach their children to behave well in public?
Okay, so for a Band-Aid answer, I'd say something like, yes, absolutely. Parents have a responsibility to teach their children good manners and how to behave appropriately in public places. It's important for kids to learn not to run around, shout, or disturb others.
That's a good start. What about a Band 9?
For a Band 9, I would emphasize the long-term benefits of teaching children proper behavior. I'd say something like, instilling good manners in children from a young age is essential for their development as responsible and respectful members of society. It helps them understand the importance of social etiquette and consideration for others.
Very well said. You've elevated the answer by connecting it to a broader social issue.
Yeah, it's not just about preventing kids from being annoying. It's about shaping their character and preparing them for the future.
Exactly. You're showing a deeper understanding of the topic and its implications.
Okay, I'm really enjoying this challenge.
All right, let's get a little more philosophical. Why do you think some people don't seem to care about their behavior in public?
Ooh, that's a tough one. For a Band-Aid, I'd probably say something like, maybe they're just selfish or they lack awareness of how their actions affect others.
Okay, a straightforward response. How would you make it a Band 9?
I think for a Band 9, I would explore different possibilities and acknowledge that there's no single explanation. I might say something like, there could be various reasons why some people exhibit inconsiderate behavior in public. Some individuals might simply be unaware of social norms or lack empathy, while others might be struggling with personal issues, stress, or simply a disregard for rules.
Excellent. You've showcased a more nuanced understanding of human behavior and avoided making generalizations.
Yeah, it's important to remember that everyone has their own reasons and we shouldn't jump to conclusions.
All right, one last question. What do you think are the differences between sitting next to someone who's talking loudly on the phone and sitting next to people who are talking loudly to each other on a train?
Okay, so for a Band-Aid, I'd say when someone's talking loudly on the phone, you only hear one side of the conversation, which can be quite irritating. But when two people are talking to each other, at least it feels like a normal conversation.
Okay, a valid observation. Now let's hear your Band 9 version.
For a Band 9, I would say something like overhearing one side of a phone conversation can be particularly jarring because our brains naturally try to fill in the missing information. This can lead to a sense of intrusion and make it harder to ignore the conversation. On the other hand, when two people are talking to each other, it feels more like a natural interaction and blends into the background noise more easily.
Very insightful. You've touched on the psychological aspect of why overhearing phone conversations can be more distracting.
Yeah, it's interesting how our brains work, isn't it?
It is indeed. You've shown a deeper understanding of the issue, and that's exactly what sets apart a Band 9 response.
Okay, I'm feeling much more confident about the IELTS speaking exam now.
That's great to hear. Remember, it's all about practice preparation and expressing yourself with clarity and confidence.
And thinking critically, connecting ideas, and showing a genuine interest in the topic.
Absolutely well said.
Well, I think that's a wrap for our deep dive into the IELTS speaking exam today.
It's been a pleasure exploring these questions with you.
Likewise, and a huge thank you to our listeners for joining us on this journey.
We hope you found it insightful and helpful.
And remember, if you're looking for more tips and resources, be sure to check out the Hack the IELTS Speaking Exam podcast.
It's an excellent resource for anyone preparing for the exam.
All right, everyone. Until next time, keep practicing, keep learning, and most importantly, keep those conversations flowing. So much to think about, even just with these, everyday scenarios about phones and public spaces.
Right. It's amazing how a seemingly simple topic can lead to such rich discussions.
Yeah, and it really highlights how important it is to, go beyond the surface level in the IELTS speaking exam.
Exactly. They want to see that you can think critically, analyze different perspectives, and express yourself in a clear and sophisticated way.
So it's not just about getting the grammar right. It's about showing that you can really engage with the topic.
Precisely. And that you have a good understanding of the nuances of language and how to use it effectively.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the IELTS speaking exam, what are some of the key takeaways our listeners should keep in mind?
I think the biggest one is to always aim for depth over simplicity. Don't be afraid to use advanced vocabulary and complex sentence structures, but make sure it's relevant and adds to your argument.
Right, it's about quality, not quantity.
Exactly. And think about it like this. You're building a house. You need a strong foundation, which is your grammar and vocabulary, but you also need those interesting architectural details, the nuances, the connections, the thought-provoking insights that make it stand out.
Love that analogy. So it's like you're not just answering a question, you're creating a masterpiece.
Exactly. And remember, practice makes perfect. The more you expose yourself to different question types, the more confident you'll become in expressing your ideas fluently and effectively.
And don't be afraid to challenge yourself. Push beyond those simple responses and really dig deep into the topic.
Now, before we go, I want to leave you with a final thought. We've been talking a lot about phone etiquette and public behavior, but what about the bigger picture? How has technology changed our interactions in the modern world? Has it brought us closer together or pushed us further apart?
That's a great question to ponder. And I think it speaks to the heart of what the IELTS speaking exam is all about. It's not just about testing your language skills, it's about testing your ability to think critically and connect with the world around you.
Exactly. So keep those conversations flowing, keep exploring, keep learning, and most importantly, keep those brains buzzing.
Couldn't said it better myself. And for all our listeners out there who are preparing for the IELTS, we wish you the best of luck. Remember, believe in yourself, practice hard, and most importantly, enjoy the journey.
It's a challenging but rewarding experience, and we're here to support you every step of the way.
That's all from us today. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the IELTS speaking exam. We hope you found it insightful and inspiring. Until next time, keep those conversations flowing.